Welcome to the TV Dudes podcast, where we dive into the world of television and beyond. I'm your host, Les, and today we have a special treat for you. Joining me today are the dynamic and talented members of the band Betty, the trailblazing award-winning indie rock trio of sisters Elizabeth and Amy Ziff, and their bestie, Alyson Palmer. Betty have been creating addictively melodic music for almost 40 years and will release their invigorating new anthem, Pride, as a single on Friday, May 17th. Pride features beats by Mexican Grammy Award-winning DJ Human Fader. Betty will also help launch NYC Pride and celebrate the new single with a special concert at Joe's Pub on Thursday, May 30th at 7 p.m. Tickets are available in the description. So, without further ado, let's chat with Betty. So, hello, Betty, first and foremost.
Hello, Les.
I'm so glad y'all are all here. Of course, I'm chatting with Elizabeth and Amy Ziff and their bestie, Alyson Palmer. Uh, so, you, at the end of this month, have the show coming up May 30th at Joe's Pub. I'm going to have a link to tickets for folks in the area. Tell me a little bit about getting back together, the new song, the new album. What sends up the Betty signal? What makes it come back together?
My favorite thing is that you're saying getting back together. What most people don't know about the band Betty, which you can see us if you want to see us while we're talking at hellobetty.com, is that we've never broken up. We've been together for 38 years consistently. 38 years in a band.
Yeah, I mean, we just played shows. I mean, we play shows all the time, and we have a new record that's coming out, and the new single Pride, which is dropping May 17th for the Pride season, obviously. Yeah, we've never gone away.
When it
And
comes
what
time
sends up the Betty signal, which I actually love, what sends up the Betty signal is when we decide that it is time for us to have a party. And May 30th is the perfect time. This is our 11th album. And for the first time, we didn't do this album by ourselves. We did it with the help of Kickstarter, as well as winning a fantastic award from the city of New York for women in the arts. And we were like, it is time for a party. And that's what's happening May 30th at Joe's Pub, which we're thrilled about when we're going to have our first single, Pride.
Singing on stage is already going to be a vulnerable thing. Putting your music out there is already a vulnerable act. But Kickstarter, I've done crowdfunding before. That can be vulnerable in a way that I'd never really experienced. Can you talk a little bit about, did that feel like a change for y'all as far as reaching your fan base or the connection?
It was super fun. It was really fun, actually. We weren't expecting it to be that fun. At first, we were a little bit skeptical about it and circumspect, but then we had a chance to really
Mortified.
It was mortified, horrified, But then we realized that it was a really great way for people to give back and get back with us. And they seemed really excited, and we kind of fed off of their excitement. It was fun.
100%.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. People really stepped up. It was fantastic. And I think it's because we've created community and we've been part of community. And, we're Betty, we're like the mafia. Once you're in, you're in. So once you're a fan, and then because we've been together so long that people bring their friends and then they end up bringing their kids. And so it becomes a generational thing, which is wonderful.
Absolutely. And, it's like the last scene of It's a Wonderful Life. All of a sudden, all these people were just saying like, here's this, here's that. And it was really gratifying to know that the thing that our passion, our vocation, our avocation for all this time, it touches people and makes people want to help us. That was really wonderful. And not even just help us, but be part of what's going on.
Yeah, be part of it. I think that's where people were coming from.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm sure some folks know you from the theme to the L Word, and I watched Encyclopedia when I was a kid. Like people know you from. Has there been a strangest moment for all of you on the journey, as far as just looking around and going, "Are we playing here? Is this happening? This is really cool." Have you had a weirdest
Madison
moment?
Square Garden.
I would
Madison Square Garden for me. We played that for V-Day one year, and I mean, there's so many weird moments. Honestly, this is a weird moment, but
For me, this is Allie speaking. For me, my two weirdest moments both had to do with people who are extremely big stars in the world, who basically I ran into at a party or at an elevator, who were like, man, there were a bunch of these guys in an elevator when we were in Seattle. And they were like, well, wait a second, you're from that show Encyclopedia. We used to watch you all the time. And it was Pearl Jam. So all of us went up to the roof and we were just like partying and hanging out and stuff. And it's just when people know us from our 38-year long career. And the other one was someone who came up and said, my mom is a huge fan of yours. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful. I hope that you too have a band someday, son. And it turned out to be Dave Grohl, which, you know,
I think that one of the best things for us too, I mean, collectively, was after a show at the Bottom Line, Gloria Steinem ran back to the dressing room. And I think this was the first, well, it was the first time in my life that I was starstruck. I mean, I couldn't say a word. None of us could say a word. She just was gushing about what she'd seen and what she'd heard. And then we weren't saying anything. And finally she said, my name's Gloria. And I just want, and then we were able to stammer out, we know who you are. And we've been friends ever since, which has been one of the best things of our career. Yeah. If not the, I guess.
Well, and that leads me to something I wanted to ask you all about, the Betty effect. Can you talk a little bit about your activism, making a conscious choice early on through your entire career to not divest that, not dissociate from it, but to have that be part of what you're doing?
You know, I think one of the reasons we've been together for so long is because we have had this other life aside from just getting together and playing music and being out there being a band. From the very, very beginning, Elizabeth was working at the Rape Crisis Center, you know, and our first gigs were at Prides back before anybody did Pride.
But also take back the night
rallies and things like that, right. Because all of us have always been activists. All of us have always believed in the equal rights of women and girls and LGBTQ people, as well as everyone else. And so that passion, I think, has fueled us and kept us going from the very beginning, even when times when bands would generally break up, because this work was so ongoing. It sort of kept us going as well, I think.
And so we became arts envoys for the State Department when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, because she was doing a lot of programs around the world involving women and girls and trying to elevate them in their communities. And so we went around, and we still do go to places. We went to Argentina, we went to Mexico, we went to India, we went to the Baltic states and South Africa, and came in with concerts, but also doing programs to help empower women and girls, LGBTQ communities. We've done stuff on anti-Semitism, and so it's been really wonderful for us to be able to do that on a grander scale than, you know, to do both, to do it in small communities and then to do it in conjunction with the State Department. Obviously that sort of fell apart when Trump came into office, but it's back now. And
Gloria was the one that asked us to continue it in the form of our own nonprofit, to continue the work that we were doing with the State Department. And so we kind of took what she said to do and started a nonprofit, and she serves on our board.
And she was the one that came up with the name. And like, we were like, well, do we really want to put Betty in there? She was like, well, there's an effect that happens when the three of you all get together and you perform in front of other people. There's an effect that happens that empowers people. And therefore that's what you should call it. And we said, all right, if you think so. So she's been very supportive from the very beginning. And it's been a great organization because we have taken it, like Elizabeth said, all over the world. And we've been able to not only, I won't say we've affected change, but we've helped people in the process of their own change. And when we go back and check on them, to see them still on that trajectory that they started is unbelievably gratifying.
And also the thing is, it's changed us. I mean, you go and you see places where the rights of people are so much less than America, and you realize that we're in this, even though we're fighting for rights in America and it's consistently going back and forth, when you go to other places in the world, that's why travel is so important, and not just on your phone.
True.
You see that people, especially women around the world, have much more difficult time, LGBTQ as well. And it's great to be able to learn from that and learn from people who are working for their own freedom and their own rights in a situation that is dire, much more dire than in parts of America that we've been in. And you know, we're privileged, we're lucky.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think travel, for exactly that reason, can be so important, just to give perspective to what you're living in. You don't know water
Essential.
if you.
And to see places that are better, that are doing healthcare, that are doing feminism in a much better way, that you know, that are doing LGBTQ, that are having rights, that things that we're looking at in our country that should be happening and should have been happening many, many years ago, and they're not. So that's another takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
That's a terrible segue, but to talk a little bit about Pride, the new single. Can you talk a little bit about working with Jason Palmer, the new album, the sound? What was that like? I know it's got to be fun for you all to come back together and hear each other's voices and blend and work. But what did the new element feel like?
Well,
hold on, Les, why do you keep saying come
I
back
keep
together?
saying that. I think it's because somewhere I saw that that this album had first new recording in 7 years is what's doing it to me.
Right, but we're just busy.
But
You know
you're
what I mean?
just
We're
busy.
all just like hanging out.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
have to remember this, because we are, as women in this industry, we're playing music, we're writing, we're doing all that other stuff. But I'm also a mom, and so is Amy. And Elizabeth's
Yeah.
a goddess mother, you know what I mean? So we're doing our lives, we're doing that balancing act. So it's not that we've come back together, it's that we are finally making time to do this album, which is thrilling.
Yeah.
And working with Jason Palmer is amazing. It was Elizabeth's idea.
thanks.
Mhm.
Well, he was a good friend when we lived in DC, which is, you know, 1,000 years ago, and he was in bands at the time. He was in 1953, and then he went on to become a, you know, pretty famous producer. He works a lot in Austin, and he has a studio in Mexico City. So we did most of the recording in New York, but a lot of it, the mixing and things like that, happened in Mexico City. And working with him was just wonderful because we had a shorthand, because he knew us when we started. So he really came from our vocal and electronica sort of world that we started in and brought it into this very contemporary sounds. We worked with another person who was doing a lot of the computer sounds and a lot of the backing things, and he's a pretty famous DJ in Mexico City. And so we were able to not only work in New York and with ourselves, but to open and expand ourselves with somebody that we trusted, who loved what we did already and just wanted to make it better and make it more commercial, for want of a better word. And he did, you know, he really did. So
Also,
Jason
we
came
went
from
to
sorry, go ahead.
and we went to really fun restaurants together, and he also could tell us to shut up when we were fighting, and to regroup and come back with a different perspective, and here's maybe something to explore. And we listened, and we came back to the studio, and we had some different ideas.
Unless a lot like Austin, at least what we used to see on 6th Street a long time ago, where you are, we came from a Washington, D.C. that was all about all kinds of music. It wasn't everything separated in silos. It was go-go, it was punk, it was hardcore, it was new wave, it was pop, all happening at the same time in a relatively small space, which is Washington, D.C., with a ton of different music venues. And Jason knew that language too. So we could bring all these different elements to this album, which is coming out in September, Eat. And this is the very first single, Pride, which we thought was a really great way to sort of kick off everything that we believed in and also get us ready for the party season because it's summertime.
And we also, I mean, the thing about DC when we were there, when all of us were there, Jason, is that it was especially the underground, it was Black people, white people, gay people. It was everybody working together. It was before social media, so we were social ourselves, and people supported each other. And it was an incredibly exciting time to be in DC. It was during the Reagan era. So of course the underground was much stronger, and it was just the excitement of that music and that time. We were trying to capture that among the four of us, and I think we did, because it's exciting, it's fun. there's politics involved, but it's, you know, it's a revolution you can dance to, and that's always been important to Betty.
Yeah,
Here, here.
I think often nowadays we can fall into the trap of thinking like, oh, punk music, I know what that sounds like. That sounds like Rancid or some modern, you know, crunchy guitar, Green Day. And if you go back and look at punk, I think of the B-52s were punk as fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
Blondie
you know,
was punk.
Blondie was punk. You,
Mhm.
Betty is punk.
Right.
You know, you guys have been out there doing it. Um, it's just really impressive. I think it's great all the various places that people can know you, and if they look into it at all, they're going to hear all this music. And it you know, I knew you from Encyclopedia, and then like, oh my gosh, you're also the L Word themes. Oh my gosh, you're all like it's a wonderful thread to pull. And I hope everybody everybody knows a Betty song, even if they don't realize it.
And
The audience at home right
everybody
now.
has heard Betty because we also have done commercials. For instance, Pringles campaigns. So people have actually heard us without knowing our name. So it's really fun when people do follow those little threads to the main tapestry. Thank you for saying this.
And we are alternative. I mean, we really are, you know, the real alternative. And we have been for a long time. We've always been our own entity. And
Indie.
Yeah.
So just underneath of it all, Les, we're just three all-American gals on the go, you know, that just want to, you know, make music and make people smile.
And make cupcakes.
Yeah.
Well, you also make a podcast, which
we do.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit about doing Betty Girl Band?
Well, the thing is that we wanted to do something that was a little bit more truthful. A lot of times when we're talking or when we're doing, not now, of course, we're very truthful.
Oh, this interview, no, I get it.
No, of course. And so we got together, and I own a studio, as you can see. It's a little bit of a mess right now because I repainted. But we just wanted to sit around because I did listen to a lot of podcasts at first. And so we decided to do one because we do have a story. We have a long story. And Alyson kept these amazing archives of tapes from when we first started. And Amy has all these memories. And what's interesting is when you get together and the three of us would sit there and I edited it afterward and put stuff in, our music, all three of us have completely different memories of certain things.
Rashomon.
I never thought that. And you can see that as it's happening. And then we were able to go out and find people and interview them or have them send in stuff about their little tiny memory of Betty, like Wally Pfister, who we worked with before. And it was just fun and linear and told a story. And we're pretty brutally honest in it. I mean, so honest that we wouldn't let Allison's kids listen to it at first until they were old enough. Yeah. And it's just super fun. I love editing. I love podcasts. So I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to it, but it's pretty worthwhile.
Are you familiar with the film Zelig, Les?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of times Betty's been Zelig. We've been in these, like we were on stage when Hillary Clinton came on stage. I'm like, there's been a lot of really interesting moments in this long adventure of ours. So the fact that people keep coming to us and say, oh, we want to do a documentary. The fact that we could kind of do our own documentary through this podcast, Betty, Girl Band, has really been fun. And we've done up until what year? 1989, 90, what?
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, it all fell apart, but we keep threatening to start it again. So we probably will. But
it's been like, I think there's something like 15 episodes already from the very beginning, which was like 1986 is when the band started, up through the Reagan 80s into like moving to New York and what it was like to be in New York in the early 80s, which was such an incredible time and all that. So that's what we talk about, and we have all these people come on. It's a really fun listen.
Well, and with the tools there and accessible, why not tell your own story? Why have someone else control that documentary and form that narrative?
Oh, many people have tried. Many have tried. We want to make a documentary about you.
We've had about, I guess, 100 managers and 15 crews that were making a documentary. One of these times we'll hit the right combination, I think.
I think someone's got to die, though. We need like a big finish. So I think that's when it'll happen.
right? There's no huge ending, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's going to be on stage.
Story, there's no climax, yeah.
Right. It'll have to be on stage after a big number flop, and then the story is finished.
I hear you, but it's been done. I think it's going to have to be more like a parachute, but we'll work on that.
Okay.
Well, May 30th, 7 p.m., folks can come see y'all at Joe's Pub. We'll put a link to tickets. I want to thank you so much for making time to talk to me about all this today. It's been really fun. It's so nice to get to meet all of you.
You too.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us on.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.